"You dating my daughter, it must be a joke," laughed the millionaire. But she left him in shock. Jason Miller felt sweat running down his hands as he waited in the reception of the most luxurious office in New York City. The 22-year-old young man, wearing his best t-shirt and washed jeans, knew that this moment would define his future with Emma. The laughter echoed through the room when Jason finally managed to speak the words he had rehearsed for weeks. Richard Thompson, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country, held his belly from laughing so hard while shaking the young man's hand with exaggerated force. "You want to date my daughter?" repeated Richard, still laughing. "Boy, that's the best joke I've heard in years. A janitor from my company wanting to date the Thompson heiress." Emma, sitting next to her father in her elegant red dress, lowered her eyes in embarrassment. At 20 years old, she had grown up surrounded by luxury, but her heart beat fast for that simple young man she had met 3 months ago when she visited her father at the office. "Mr. Thompson," Jason swallowed dryly, trying to keep his voice steady. "I know you don't know me well, but my feelings for Emma are real. I truly love her." "Love?" Richard wiped away a tear from laughing so hard. "My boy, you don't even have a place to live. You live in a boarding house in the Bronx, work as a janitor, and think you can support my daughter. She spends in one afternoon what you earn in 2 months." The humiliation burned Jason's face, but he remained standing. During those months, Emma had told him about the loneliness of growing up surrounded by luxury, but without true affection. They talked secretly in the company hallways, and she always said he was the first person who saw her as Emma, not as the millionaire's daughter. "Dad, please." Emma tried to intervene, but Richard silenced her with a stern look. "You stay quiet, girl. I've already spoken with Edward Williams about the marriage with his son, Tyler. 2 important families uniting as it should be." Jason felt his world collapsing. Emma had never mentioned this commitment. She had encouraged him to talk to her father, saying he would eventually accept when he got to know his qualities. "Mr. Jason," Richard stood up, still with a sarcastic smile, "you're fired. And if I find out you've approached my daughter again, you'll have serious problems. Now get out of my sight before I call security." Tears streamed down Emma's face when Jason turned to leave. She wanted to run after him, but her legs wouldn't obey. Her father had always controlled every aspect of her life, choosing her friends, her courses, and now he wanted to choose her husband. "Emma?" Jason stopped at the door and looked into her eyes. "I will prove to your father that I am worthy of you." "I won't give up." Richard laughed again when the door closed. "What nonsense! A boy with nothing to his name thinking he can get close to our family. You need to stop these romantic ideas, Emma. The real world isn't a soap opera." But Emma didn't answer. She was thinking about the conversations she had with Jason, how he made her laugh, how he listened when she talked about her dreams of going to veterinary school. Her father always said that was nonsense, that she should focus on business administration to help with the family business. Meanwhile, Jason walked through the downtown streets, aimless. He no longer had a job, his savings were minimal, and the love of his life was promised to another. But a determination grew in his chest. Richard Thompson thought he knew Jason Miller, but he had no idea who he really was. Jason had grown up in the Bronx, raised only by his grandmother after his parents died in an accident when he was 8 years old. Mrs. Dorothy Miller was a simple woman, but she always said that education was the only inheritance she could leave for her grandson. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. At 14, Jason began working to help out at home, but he never abandoned his studies. He finished high school in night classes and got a partial scholarship to a private civil engineering college. He worked during the day and studied at night, sleeping only 4 hours a day. The job at Thompson Construction had been a unique opportunity. Jason needed the salary, but he also saw a chance to learn about the construction business. He observed everything, from the meetings he witnessed while cleaning the rooms to the projects he saw on the engineers' desks. Emma didn't know any of this. To her, Jason was just the kind young man who always greeted her with respect, unlike the other employees who treated her with a forced reverence because of her father. Jason treated her like a normal person, asking about her day, her opinions, her tastes. The week after he was fired, Jason knocked on the doors of several companies, but the word had spread. Richard Thompson had influence in the industry, and no one wanted to hire someone who had disrespected the powerful businessman. With no prospects, Jason decided to start his own business. He used his last savings to buy cleaning supplies and began offering residential cleaning services in his own neighborhood. The work was hard, but he had a plan. Every morning before starting work, Jason studied. He had managed to get some used books on business administration and business management. At night after work, he watched free video lessons at the public library that had internet. Emma, on the other hand, was living in hell at home. Her father controlled her every move, had hired security guards to watch her, and had scheduled her engagement to Tyler Williams for 2 months later. Tyler was a 25-year-old man, a business school graduate, but arrogant and self-serving. On the few occasions they had met, he only talked about cars, expensive trips, and parties. "Dad, I don't love Tyler," Emma tried to argue during a dinner. "Love is for the movies, my dear. Marriage is a union of assets, a strategy. You'll learn to like him. And if I don't want to get married, you will want to. It's the only option you have." The firmness in her father's voice made it clear there was no room for discussion. Emma felt like a prisoner in her own home, surrounded by luxury but with no freedom. 2 weeks after Jason was fired, something unexpected happened. Mrs. Margaret Wilson, a 70-year-old lady who lived in an old townhouse on the Upper East Side, had hired Jason for a deep clean. The house was enormous, full of antique objects and photographs. During the work, Jason noticed that the lady seemed nervous, constantly fiddling with some papers on the living room table. "Mrs. Margaret, are you all right? Can I help with something?" asked Jason, pausing his cleaning. "Oh, my dear, it's just that I have some problems here. Annoying paperwork. My lawyer said I need to organize some documents about a piece of land I inherited, but I don't understand any of this stuff." Jason approached carefully. The documents dealt with a dispute over a piece of land downtown. Mrs. Margaret's family claimed to have rights to the property, but a company was trying to take possession, claiming irregularities in the documentation. "May I take a look, Mrs. Margaret?" "I study these things," the lady agreed, curious. Jason analyzed the papers carefully. His experience at Richard's company, observing similar contracts and documents, helped a great deal. After 2 hours of studying everything, he made some notes. "Mrs. Margaret, I think the company is trying to deceive you. Right here in this document," he pointed, "it's clear that your family has legitimate rights to the property. They're using a loophole in the old paperwork, but this can be resolved. But my lawyer said it was a lost cause. With all due respect, I don't think he looked into it properly. If you'd like, I can research this further and maybe find a solution." Mrs. Margaret was impressed by the young janitor's knowledge. Jason spent the next few days researching at the library, consulting laws and similar precedents. He discovered there was indeed a way to regularize the situation, protecting the Wilson family's rights. The solution proposed by Jason not only solved the problem, but revealed that the previous lawyer had been negligent, possibly even taking bribes from the company interested in the property. Mrs. Margaret was so grateful that she recommended Jason to other people with similar problems. Within a few weeks, Jason was providing informal consulting to several families in the neighborhood, helping with paperwork issues, simple contracts, and guidance on rights. His small cleaning business grew, and he hired 2 people to help while he dedicated more time to consulting. Emma, meanwhile, suffered in silence. She had to change her phone number because her father found out Jason was trying to contact her. The bodyguards accompanied her even to college, where she was studying business administration against her will. One day, during a class on small business management, the professor mentioned an interesting case about a young entrepreneur who was helping low-income families with legal issues in the Bronx. The name wasn't mentioned, but Emma had a hunch. "Professor, could you give more details about this case?" she asked. "Of course, it's fascinating. A young man with no resources, who works in cleaning, is using self-taught knowledge to solve problems that expensive lawyers couldn't. He's charging symbolic fees and has already helped more than 20 families. It's an example of how creativity and dedication can overcome financial limitations." Emma felt her heart race. She was sure it was Jason. The description matched his profile perfectly: intelligent, dedicated, and always concerned with helping others. That night, she pretended to be sick to avoid dinner with the family and locked herself in her room. She needed to find a way to contact Jason. But how? The answer came from an unexpected source. Martha, the housekeeper for the Thompson family for over 15 years, entered the room to bring Emma her dinner. "Sweetheart, you've been so sad lately," said Martha with maternal affection. "It's because of that handsome young man who used to come here, isn't it?" Emma looked surprised at Martha. The housekeeper had always been discreet, but she had a very observant eye. "Martha, you knew?" "Honey, I've watched you grow up. I know when you're in love, and that boy, he's different. He always greeted me, asked about my family. Classy people are like that, regardless of whether they have money or not." "I want so badly to talk to him, Martha, but my father—" "Your father doesn't need to know everything, right?" Martha winked. "My niece lives in the Bronx. Maybe she knows this Jason." Emma hugged Martha tightly. Finally, a hope. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The next day, Martha returned with information. Jason wasn't just known in the neighborhood. He was becoming a minor local celebrity. He'd helped a family from losing their home, advised an elderly man about workers' rights, and was setting up a free study group for young people who wanted to learn about entrepreneurship. Honey, he lives with his grandmother in a simple house, but everyone speaks well of him. They say he's studious, respectful, and always helps those in need. Martha agreed to be the intermediary. She would take a note from Emma to Jason through her niece. It was risky, but it was the only way. In the note, Emma talked about her situation, the forced engagement, and asked Jason not to give up on her. She promised she would find a way for them to be together, even if it meant confronting her father. Jason received the note on a Saturday afternoon when he was returning from a consultation. Mrs. Dorothy, his grandmother, noticed he seemed different after reading the paper. "Grandson, what happened? Bad news?" "No, Grandma, it's about that young woman I told you about. The daughter of the rich man who humiliated you." "Yes, she's promised to another, but says she loves me." Mrs. Dorothy, a wise 75-year-old woman, sat next to her grandson. "Jason, true love is rare. But sometimes life puts very big obstacles in our path. Are you sure it's worth fighting for?" "I am, Grandma. For the first time in my life, I am absolutely sure of something." "Then fight, my son. But fight the right way. Show that man that you are not less than anyone." Jason spent Sunday thinking of a strategy. Confronting Richard directly wouldn't do any good. The businessman would just see him as a reckless young man. He needed to prove his worth in a concrete, undeniable way. The opportunity came on Monday. Mrs. Margaret Wilson called, agitated. "Jason, you need to come here urgently. There's a gentleman here who wants to speak with you. He said he heard about the land case and wants your help with a similar problem." When Jason arrived at Mrs. Margaret's house, he found a well-dressed man about 50 years old waiting in the living room. "Are you Jason Miller?" The man stood up. "I'm Frank Murphy. I have an accounting firm. I heard you solved Mrs. Margaret's problem in a very clever way." "It was luck, Mr. Frank, and a lot of research." "Son, that wasn't luck, that was competence. Listen, I have a client with a similar problem but much more complex. A big company is trying to take properties from needy families using legal loopholes. I've already hired 3 different law firms, but none found a satisfactory solution." Jason was interested. Frank explained it was about an area downtown where more than 50 families had lived for decades. A construction company wanted to demolish everything to build a shopping mall, claiming irregularities in the occupation. "If you can solve this, besides helping these families, I can offer you a partnership in my firm. I have several clients who need someone creative like you." It was exactly the opportunity Jason needed. He accepted the challenge immediately. For the next 15 days, Jason immersed himself in the case. He visited all the families, analyzed old documents, researched at the city hall, studied laws on adverse possession and housing rights. He discovered the company was using illegal intimidation tactics and that the families had much stronger rights than they imagined. The solution Jason found was brilliant. He organized the families, helped them gather all the necessary documentation, and found legal precedents that guaranteed their rights. More than that, he discovered the construction company was acting in bad faith, hiding important information about the land. The case gained traction in the local media. Jason was interviewed by a neighborhood newspaper, then by a community radio station, and finally by a TV program about social entrepreneurship. He always introduced himself as a young man from the Bronx who used his studies to help the community. Frank Murphy was impressed with the results and formalized the partnership. Jason began working as a consultant, specializing in complex cases, earning a decent salary for the first time in his life. Emma followed everything through newspapers and the internet. Her heart swelled with pride with every news story about Jason. She knew her father was also watching. Richard always kept himself informed about real estate industry matters. The engagement to Tyler was scheduled to happen in 3 weeks. Emma was desperate, but she needed a plan. That's when she had a risky idea that just might work. Using her college contacts, she got information about cases where her father's company had faced problems similar to those Jason was solving. She discovered that Thompson Construction had 3 lawsuits stalled for years, involving land regularization and conflicts with communities. During a dinner, Emma casually mentioned the cases Jason had solved in the media. "Dad, did you see that young man who's helping families with documentation problems? It's impressive how he manages to solve things that expensive lawyers can't." Richard just grumbled, but Emma noticed he had paid attention. "Imagine if our company had someone like that to solve those old lawsuits that have been tied up for years." "Our company has the best lawyers in New York City, Emma. We don't need some smart aleck kid." But the seed was planted. Richard grew curious and sent an employee to research this Jason Miller, who was in the media. When he discovered it was the same young man he had fired, he was disturbed. How was it possible? A kid from the projects, without a complete college degree, was solving problems that experienced professionals couldn't. It must be luck, or maybe the cases were simpler than they seemed. To clear his doubt, Richard asked a trusted lawyer to analyze the cases Jason had solved. The report left him uneasy. The solutions were truly innovative and demonstrated a deep knowledge of legislation. "Boss," said the lawyer, "this young man has a natural talent for finding creative solutions. The cases he solved were truly complex. If he had a complete academic background, he would be an exceptional professional." Richard was bothered. He was used to labeling people quickly, and Jason didn't fit into his categories. How could a poor young man without resources stand out in this way? Meanwhile, Jason was getting more and more cases. His partnership with Frank was working out, and he managed to rent a small office downtown. He hired 2 people to help and started planning free legal guidance courses for the community. Mrs. Dorothy was proud of her grandson, but worried. "Jason, you're not forgetting to live because of work, are you? And that young lady, what about her?" "Grandma, I need to establish myself first. When I prove my worth, maybe her father will respect me. What if it's too late? What if she marries the other one?" It was the fear Jason carried every day. But he had to believe that Emma would find a way to postpone the wedding until he could prove his worth. Emma, in turn, was executing her own strategy. She convinced her father to let her do an internship at the company, claiming she wanted to learn about the family business. Richard was pleased. Finally, his daughter was showing interest in the business. What he didn't know was that Emma planned to use her position to demonstrate Jason's competence more directly. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out now continuing. During the internship, Emma gained access to the company's old lawsuits. She chose the most complex one, a land regularization case that had been stalled for 5 years and had already cost a fortune in legal fees without any resolution. "Dad, can I try to solve this case as my internship project?" she asked, showing him the documents. "Honey, our best lawyers have already tried. It's a lost cause. But it would be good experience for me to learn about the problems our company faces." Richard agreed, thinking it would be a harmless academic exercise. Emma took copies of all the documents and, through Martha, managed to get them into Jason's hands. Along with the documents, she sent a note explaining the situation and asking for help. Jason immediately understood what Emma was trying to do. The case was truly complex. It involved a piece of land the company had purchased years ago, but there were ownership disputes with a residents' cooperative. The company's lawyers had taken a confrontational stance, filing eviction lawsuits, but the cooperative had solid arguments about squatters' rights. Jason studied the case for an entire week. The solution he found was elegant. Instead of confrontation, propose a partnership. The company could develop the project while keeping part of the area for affordable housing, creating a mixed development that would benefit everyone involved. More than just solving the legal problem, Jason's proposal would turn a costly conflict into a business opportunity with social responsibility. The company would gain a better image. The residents would keep their rights and the project would be economically viable. Jason prepared a detailed report with the proposal, including economic feasibility studies and similar models that had worked in other cities. Emma received the material and was impressed by the depth of the analysis. "How does he manage to think of solutions no one else has thought of?" she murmured, reading the report. Emma presented the proposal to her father as the result of her own research. Richard was surprised by the quality of the work. "Honey, this is very well put together. Did you get help from a professor?" "No, Dad. I did a lot of research and tried to think outside the box." Richard took the proposal to the company's lawyers for analysis. The feedback was unanimous. The solution was innovative and had a high chance of success. Within 2 weeks, negotiations with the cooperative began based on Jason's proposal. The project was so successful that other companies in the sector started approaching Thompson Construction to learn about the methodology. Richard publicly boasted about the creative solution found by the company, unaware that the true author was the young man he had fired months earlier. Emma felt guilty for taking credit for Jason's work, but she knew it was part of a bigger plan. She needed to create more opportunities to demonstrate his competence. Her engagement to Tyler was approaching, and the pressure was mounting. During a dinner to officially introduce the future son-in-law to the extended family, Tyler showed his true personality. "Emma will drop this silly college thing after we get married," he said, sipping wine. "A family woman doesn't need to work. She'll take care of the house and the children." "What about the family business?" asked one of Emma's uncles. "That's what men are for," Tyler laughed. "Women who meddle in business just get in the way." Emma felt angry but held her tongue. Some relatives were uncomfortable with Tyler's chauvinistic comments, but Richard didn't seem to mind. After dinner, Emma tried to talk to her father. "Dad, Tyler doesn't respect me. He doesn't even want me to finish college." "Honey, men are just like that. After you're married, you'll get used to it." "What if I don't want to get used to it? What if I want to work, have my own career?" These modern ideas only bring trouble. A married woman should take care of the home. Emma realized she wouldn't be able to convince her father with direct arguments. She needed a different strategy. The following week, an unexpected opportunity arose. The company was facing a new problem. A community in upstate New York was questioning a land subdivision project, claiming the area had historical importance. The company's lawyers were proposing a prolonged legal battle, which would be very costly and generate bad publicity. Emma saw another chance to demonstrate Jason's value. This time, she was more direct. She got Jason's office address through Martha and went to visit him in person, dodging the surveillance of the security guards. The meeting happened on a Tuesday morning. Jason was analyzing some contracts when Emma appeared in the doorway of the small office. He could hardly believe his eyes. "Emma, how did you—" "Jason," she ran to hug him. "I had to see you. I miss you so much." The hug lasted long seconds. Jason could smell her perfume, feel the warmth of her body, and for a moment, he forgot all his problems. "How did you find me? And your father's security guards?" "I skipped out of college. I don't have much time before they find out I'm gone." Emma looked around the simple but organized office. There were law books, stacks of documents, an old computer, but everything was very clean and functional. "Jason, I'm so proud of you. I saw everything in the media, your cases, how you're helping people. Emma, I love you so much. Every day away from you is agony, but I needed to prove—" "You don't have to prove anything to me. I knew who you were from the very first day. But I need to prove it to your father, and I think I found a way." Jason told her about the case she had sent him, how he had resolved it, and how that could be the start of a change in Richard's perception. "Jason, I have another case, even more important. If you can solve it, my father will have to recognize your worth." Emma explained the land subdivision situation upstate. Jason quickly analyzed the documents she had brought and identified the main points of the conflict. "Emma, I can solve this, but it will take a few weeks. Can you postpone the engagement?" "I'll try, but if I can't..." "But if you can't, I'll show up at the church and stop the wedding." Emma laughed for the first time in weeks. "My romantic hero." "Emma, before you go, I want you to know that everything I'm doing is for us, for a future where we can be together without anyone questioning it." "I know, my love, and I will fight too. My father may be stubborn, but he's not a bad person. When he truly gets to know you, he'll see what I see." They kissed for the first time, right there in the small office, a kiss full of longing, passion, and hope. Emma had to go back before her absence was noticed, but she left there renewed. She had a plan, and this time she wouldn't fail. Jason dove into the new case with redoubled energy. He traveled upstate, talked with the community, analyzed the area's historical importance, and studied legislation on cultural heritage. The solution he found was even more creative than the previous ones. Instead of dismissing the area's historical importance, he proposed the company incorporate this aspect into the project. A themed subdivision, which would preserve the important historical elements and create a tourist attraction for the region. The project would be more expensive, but also much more profitable in the long run. The local community would be integrated as a partner, offering tourist services, and the company would gain national recognition for its innovation. Jason prepared a complete project, with blueprints, feasibility studies, partnerships with universities for historical research, and a marketing plan that would turn the conflict into a competitive advantage. Meanwhile, Emma tried to buy some time. She claimed she wanted a bigger, more elaborate wedding, which would require several more months to organize. Tyler didn't like the delay, but Richard accepted the justification. "Honey, you're right. Important people's weddings need to be done properly. Let's reschedule for 4 months from now." Emma breathed a sigh of relief. 4 months was enough time for Jason to prove his worth. When the report on the upstate case was ready, Emma again presented it as her own work. This time, Richard was even more impressed. "Honey, this project is sensational. You really have a talent for business." "Thank you, Dad. I think I've finally found my calling." The company's lawyers were impressed with the quality of the project. The proposal was accepted by the local community, which saw concrete benefits in the partnership. Within a few weeks, the project became a benchmark in the industry. Richard started receiving calls from other business owners, asking about Thompson Construction's innovative methodology. He felt proud of his daughter, but also puzzled. How had she developed these skills so quickly? One day, during a conversation with Edward Williams, Tyler's father, Richard mentioned Emma's projects. "Richard, your daughter is truly talented, but I have a question. Tyler mentioned she never showed any interest in business. How did this change happen so fast?" The question stuck in Richard's mind. Indeed, Emma had never shown any aptitude for these matters, and the projects she presented had a level of sophistication that was very high for someone who was just starting out. Richard decided to investigate discreetly. He asked an employee to check Emma's academic history, the sources she used for research, and how she spent her time during her internship. That's when he discovered something strange. Emma had consulted books in the library about cases similar to those Jason Miller had solved. More than that, the dates perfectly coincided with the periods when she presented her solutions. Richard began to suspect but still didn't want to believe it. He decided to set a test. He presented a fictitious case to Emma, inventing a problem that didn't exist, and asked her to study a solution. Emma realized it was a trap, but it was too late. She tried to buy time, saying she needed to do more research, but her father's pressure increased every day. "Emma, this case is urgent. I need your analysis by Friday." She couldn't involve Jason in a made-up case, but she also didn't know how to solve it on her own. She tried to research, to study, but she couldn't come up with a convincing solution. On Friday, Emma presented a weak report, full of inaccuracies and obvious solutions. Richard confirmed his suspicions. "Emma, sit down, we need to talk." Her heart raced. She knew she'd been found out. "Honey, who is helping you with these projects?" "No one, Dad. I'm the one who—" "Emma, don't lie to me. The first 2 projects were brilliant, this last one is amateurish. Clearly you had help on the others." Emma lowered her head. It was the moment of truth. "It's Jason, isn't it?" Richard asked, but he already knew the answer. "Dad, Jason Miller. Jason. The same kid I fired for wanting to date you. Dad, you don't understand. Jason is brilliant. He what? Is he using you to get back at me? To make a fool of me? No. He doesn't even know I presented the projects as mine. He just wanted to help." Richard was silent for a few minutes, processing the information. Jason had solved 2 of the company's complex problems the best professionals couldn't solve. And he had done it to help Emma, without expecting credit or payment. "Dad, Jason truly loves me, and he's proven he has talent that he can be useful to our company. Emma, even if that's true, he deceived me. You both deceived me. We just wanted a chance to prove that." "Prove? What kind of proof is this based on lies?" Emma began to cry. Her plan had failed, and now the situation was worse than before. "Dad, please at least talk to him. Get to know who he really is." "I know who he is. A clever young man who's using my daughter to try to get ahead in life." "That's not true. Emma, you are forbidden from having any contact with this young man, and the marriage to Tyler will happen on the original date. I've waited long enough." Emma left the office desperate. Her plan had not only failed, but had made everything worse. Now her father was more determined than ever to keep them apart. That night, through Martha, she managed to send one last note to Jason, telling him what had happened and saying goodbye. She wrote that she loved him, but that she could no longer fight her family. Jason received the note the next day and felt his world collapse. After months of effort, of proving his worth, everything had ended in failure. Mrs. Dorothy found her grandson crying in the kitchen. "Jason, what happened?" He told his grandmother everything, from Emma's plan to Richard's discovery. "Grandma, I lost her. I lost the only person I've ever truly loved. My boy, sometimes life teaches us that true love must go through very difficult trials. But I did everything right, Grandma. I studied, I grew professionally, I helped a lot of people. Why wasn't it enough? Jason, perhaps you're looking at this the wrong way. You proved your worth to yourself, to the community, to many people. That's not a small thing. But I didn't prove it to her father. Are you sure you didn't? Think about it, grandson. A man who hires the best professionals in the country discovered that a 22-year-old boy solves problems that they couldn't. That doesn't go unnoticed." Jason didn't understand what his grandmother meant, but her words planted a seed of hope. The next day, something unexpected happened. Richard Thompson showed up at Jason's office. The businessman entered without ceremony, accompanied only by his driver. Jason stood up from his desk, surprised and nervous. "Mr. Thompson, how's it? Sit down, son. We need to talk." Richard looked around the modest but well-organized office. He noticed the law books, the course certificates on the wall, the stacks of organized documents. "So you are Jason Miller, the young man who's revolutionizing the legal consulting market. Sir, I can explain about the projects." "Explain what?" "How you managed to solve in weeks problems that my lawyers haven't solved in years." Jason didn't know how to respond. Richard continued. "Do you know how much my company spent trying to resolve those 2 cases? More than $1 million in legal fees. You solved them for free, driven only by love for my daughter. Mr. Thompson, I love Emma, and I wanted to prove that you deserve her." Richard interrupted. "Son, after what you've done, I think it's my daughter who needs to prove she deserves you." Jason was in shock. He hadn't expected this kind of reaction. "Sir, I don't understand." "Jason, I've spent my whole life thinking that money and social position were the only measures of a person's worth. You proved me wrong." Richard stood up and began to walk around the room. "You know what impresses me the most? You could have used those solutions to blackmail my company, to demand something in return. But you did it all for love, without asking for anything. I just wanted a chance to be with Emma. And you deserve that chance. More than that, you deserve my respect and my admiration. Jason couldn't believe what he was hearing. Mr. Thompson, are you serious? Jason, I have a proposal for you. I want you to come work at my company as the Director of Innovative Solutions. Executive salary, profit sharing, and complete freedom to develop your methods. What about Emma? If she wants to marry you, she'll have my blessing. But there's one condition. Jason waited anxiously. You'll have to win her back. When I found out about the projects, I forbade her from having any contact with you. She accepted, thinking it was best for everyone. She showed she has character too. I don't understand. Jason, Emma gave up her own love to avoid causing more problems for the family. That shows maturity and generosity. You two deserve each other. Richard extended his hand to Jason. What do you say? Do you accept the job and the chance to win back my daughter? Jason shook the businessman's hand, still in shock. I accept, sir. But why this change? Jason, a wise man learns from his mistakes. I judged you by your appearance, by the money you didn't have, by your social standing. I almost lost the chance to have the best son-in-law I could wish for. In the following days, the news of Jason's hiring spread through the company. Many employees were surprised, others happy. Emma heard through hallway gossip, but thought it was just a rumor. Jason started working on the executive floor, in an office near Richard's. In the first few days, he avoided passing by places where he might run into Emma. He wanted to plan carefully how he would approach her. Emma, in turn, was plunged into deep sadness. Her wedding to Tyler was scheduled for 2 weeks later, and she felt as if she were walking to her own grave. During a meeting about the company's new projects, Richard made an announcement. Everyone, I'd like to introduce our new Director of Innovative Solutions, Jason Miller. Emma, who was at the back of the room, nearly fainted when she saw Jason enter. He was wearing an elegant suit, but still had the same gentle smile and the same caring eyes. Jason will be responsible for developing unique methodologies to solve complex issues. Some of you are already familiar with his work. Jason and Emma's eyes met across the room. She had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. After the meeting, Emma ran after her father. Dad, what does this mean? Why is Jason here? Daughter, I hired the best professional available on the market. But you said that... I said many wrong things, Emma. Jason proved to me that he's a man of worth. Now it's up to the two of you to decide what you want. And the wedding to Tyler. If you want to cancel, I understand. Emma couldn't believe it. After so many months of suffering, there was finally real hope. However, Jason didn't seek her out in the following days. He greeted her politely when they passed in the halls, but kept a respectful distance. Emma was confused. Why didn't he come talk to her? The answer came in a conversation she overheard by chance. Jason was talking to a colleague about respecting company protocols and not mixing personal life with professional. I prefer to build my credibility here through my work, not through relationships, he was saying. Emma understood. Jason wanted to earn his place in the company on his own merit, so no one could say he got the job because of her. But she couldn't wait any longer. She made a decision. She would go to him directly. On Friday, when everyone had already left, Emma knocked on Jason's office door. Excuse me, do you have a minute? Jason looked up from the documents and felt his heart race. Of course, come in. Emma closed the door and stood in front of his desk, nervous. Jason, I need to talk to you. Emma, if it's about work, it's not about work. It's about us. Jason stood up and walked to the window, his back to her. Emma, I don't know if there is an us. What do you mean? You agreed to marry another man twice, even after saying you loved me. The pain in his voice broke Emma's heart. Jason, I only did that to protect you, to not cause more trouble. Protect? Emma, if you really loved me, you would have fought harder. I did fight. I did everything to... You lied to your father, used my work, but when the situation got tough, you gave up. Emma began to cry. Jason, you don't understand. My father was furious, said he would harm you professionally, that Emma, Jason turned to her, I never asked you to protect me. I asked you to trust me. I do trust you. Then why didn't you tell me about the project plans? Why didn't you tell me you were using my work? Emma realized Jason was right. She had made decisions for him without consulting him, thinking she knew what was best. Jason, I made mistakes, but my love for you was always true. Emma, true love isn't just a feeling. It's partnership. It's mutual trust. It's facing problems together. You're right. I should have talked to you. You should have trusted us, trusted our ability to overcome difficulties together. Emma moved closer to him, with tears in her eyes. Jason, will you give me a second chance? I promise that this time we'll face everything together. Jason looked into her eyes for long seconds. He saw sincerity, regret, but he also saw the same love that had always been there. Emma, the marriage to Tyler, I'll cancel it on Monday, no matter the consequences. And if your father gets furious again, then we'll face it together, as it should have been from the start. Jason moved closer and held her hands. Emma, I love you. I always have. But we need to rebuild our trust. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to do anything. They kissed, right there in the living room, as the city lights came on outside. It was a kiss of reconciliation, of promise, of a new beginning. On Monday, Emma cancelled the marriage to Tyler. The young man was furious, as was his father, but Richard supported his daughter's decision. Edward, I apologize for the trouble, but I cannot force my daughter to marry without love. Richard, this is a humiliation. My son is being rejected for a better man than him, Richard finished. Jason Miller is worth 10 Tylers. The friendship between the two families ended, but Richard had no regrets. He had learned that his daughter's happiness was worth more than social convenience. Jason and Emma started dating officially, this time with the family's blessing. He excelled more and more in the company, developing innovative solutions that made Thompson Construction a benchmark in the industry. 6 months later, Jason proposed to Emma. Not in a fancy restaurant or on a romantic trip, but at Mrs. Dorothy's house, where it had all begun. Emma, will you marry me? Not for what I have or the position I hold, but for who I am. Jason Miller, I accept your proposal because you are the most honest, determined, and loving man I know, and because with you by my side, I am a better person. The wedding was a simple ceremony in the garden of the Thompson house. Mrs. Dorothy, in a light blue dress, cried with emotion seeing her grandson so happy. Richard, in his speech, publicly admitted he had been wrong and that he had learned a valuable lesson about prejudice. Jason taught me that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account, but by their character. My daughter chose better than I ever could have chosen for her. Jason and Emma moved into a simple but comfortable house. She finished her business degree and began working alongside her husband, developing social responsibility projects at the company. 2 years later, they created a foundation to offer free professional training courses for low-income youth. The first center operated in the Bronx, in the same neighborhood where Jason had grown up. You know what makes me proudest, said Emma one day, watching dozens of young people studying at the foundation. What? That our story can inspire other people not to give up on their dreams. Jason smiled, hugging his wife. And that true love really overcomes all barriers. Mrs. Dorothy, now a great-grandmother at 80 years old, loved telling the family's children the story of how her grandson proved that there's no such thing as a small person when the heart is big. Richard became one of the biggest advocates for social inclusion programs in the business world. He always said in lectures that the greatest lesson of his life was learning to look at people without prejudice. I almost lost the best son-in-law in the world because of my arrogance, he would say. Today I know that true wealth is having a family united by love and respect. The company Thompson Construction prospered like never before, recognized not only for its innovative projects, but for its social responsibility. Jason became a minority partner and general director, always remembering his humble origins and using his position to help others. Emma fulfilled her dream of getting a veterinary degree as a second graduation and opened a clinic that treated animals from needy families for free. The couple discovered that true happiness was in using their privileges to make a difference in other people's lives. One Sunday afternoon, 5 years after the wedding, they were visiting Mrs. Dorothy when she made an observation that deeply marked them. "Do you know why everything worked out between you?" "Why, Grandma?" asked Jason. "Because you understood that love isn't just about wanting to be together. It's about wanting to grow together. It's about wanting to be better people together." Emma squeezed Jason's hand, remembering all the difficulties they had faced, all the prejudices they had overcome, and all the lessons they had learned. "You're right, Mrs. Dorothy. Our love grew because we grew as people. And because we learned that social differences are small, next to the greatness of a generous heart," Jason added. As the sun set over New York City, they knew their story was more than a romance. It was proof that true love, combined with determination and character, can overcome any obstacle and transform not just two lives, but an entire community around them. The boy from the Bronx had become a respected businessman. The millionaire's daughter had found her own path. And together, they proved that a person's worth is not in what they possess, but in what they are capable of building with love, work, and dignity. End of story. And you? What did you think of this story of perseverance and true love? Leave your opinion about Jason and Emma in the comments and tell us if you believe that love can really overcome social differences. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.